the physicality of reality is illusory as espoused by the mystics, the Gnostics, the medieval alchemists, the sages, the prophets, the Taoists, and the various teachings of the indigenous peoples throughout the continents of the planet Earth. And there is a realm of the soul and the spirit, a biophysical body, if you will, which consists of a morphic field as a component. And this then trickles down into your electromagnetic barrier or your auric sphere of sensation. If an individual is capable of using magic and influencing the decoding of your energy field, you're capable of controlling and manipulating the perception and also removing energy and adding specific forms of energy in which will make them decode a reality that is quintessentially not what they would wish to decode in reality. This is an easy process that a person in a astral projected state of consciousness would possess, or a hyperdimensional like myself, a being that is capable of seeing into the invisible landscape and other dimensional levels of realities, which gives them the advantage over the individuals that are locked within the wetware or the body computer, as opposed to the person that is enlightened to the quintessence of what consciousness itself is and what their hidden nature is. Now, some of the secrets of illumination, for instance, to ascertain a charge in the front of the body. This is how to gain strength in the front of the body, which is a process that takes a good while, in essence. Sometimes it could take up to a week and maybe longer, and in certain instances, in rare cases, it might happen quicker than what it normally does. But to do this, you have to remember that your room of images is your imagination, so in your mind's eye, whensoever you imagine something intensely enough, you're able to biolocate to its position. Say, for instance, I imagine that I'm at Falkawar Park or Quonset Lake in Pennsylvania, or in Santa Monica or Venice Beach in California. Intensely enough in my mind's eye, my etheric double will be projected to that area. When you have enough energy, you're capable of viewing the landscape, and you're capable of picking up information with your etheric double or your projected astro body, which can then relay the information back to your physical body and brain. And when, per se, you imagine a female intensely as a male, and you go down on her in size space, you instantaneously shapeshift in the astral plane as that person. When a male's tongue actually touches the vagina of the female, their astro or etheric body will shapeshift or change into the female. Now, this gives you various abilities in which you can utilize to actually affect the person for positive or negative means. But once you do this, and you're continuously licking, you then imagine your own phallus erected and projected in the area where the woman's vagina would be upon your own body. Now, what this does is it allows you to be locked up in size space with the female. Now, you don't want to do this while imagining that you're going into her as you would in the physical world in a regular act of intercourse, because then what you'll be doing is sending your energy to the female instead, which can drain the male of the sexual energy and the life force that he possesses. And so if the male goes to the female and imagines licking her vagina, and then projects an erected image of his own phallus or penis into his body where the woman's vagina would be located on himself, then it pulls in the energy from the female, and then as the days go by, it allows it'll gradually allow for the energy to pick up, but it can be reset, and often it does, if per se a person masturbates, jacking off about a female afterwards, they will lose their connection, and even at times they will swap in size space their connection to one female. So it's all about holding the connection, which then your minds become entangled. You become one soul and spirit, biophysical body as well as physical body, and your minds become one entangled unit, so to speak. If you would just, if you imagine masturbating afterwards, like I said, you automatically reset it. But if you imagine going into the female, not only do you send your energy to like another female, but you also disconnect or swap out of the female that you're initially locked up and connected to in size space. Also, when you smoke cigarettes and drink alcoholic beverages, it also resets the energy that you can pick up in the front of your body. It makes your arms stronger, your legs in the front, like your chest and stomach area. You have more strength in the front of your body. And this can also be done in the back of the body. If a person were in size space, this invisible landscape, to imagine intensely in their mind's eye, locking up with the female in the rectum as a male, and then what they would do is repeat the same process, but instead imagine while licking the projection of the phallus in the rectum. And this allows, as time goes on, for energy to come from the back. It strengthens the back of your body and strengthens your back energy field. And also in size space, there's games of dominance, in which I've recognized where, per se, individuals will dominate a female or a male even. I've witnessed with my mind's eye in size space males doing this to other males. They will imagine, of course, locking their phallus members into the rectum of either a male or a female, and there is this microchip, if you have a third eye, in size space. It has 3 prongs on both sides, and it can go up. It rises from the rectum up the spine to the brain. And once it enters into the brain area, this gives whoever did this the ability to affect and influence the mind in ways that they wouldn't normally possess otherwise. Of course, there's more to this, and I only got to delve and to see, into certain things at the moment that I'm still picking up. Have groups of individuals that are attempting to block my mind. But energy, when we're talking about gaining energy in size space, this is actually done by recognizing the nature of corruption and of consciousness in the source itself, that when you imagine in your mind's eye intensely enough murdering somebody in size space, of course you don't do it physically, you do it in the astral plane, because otherwise you would be jailed or sanctioned or condoned, etc. What you do is you do it in your mind's eye, your imagination. And if you imagine killing people, every time that you kill them, you gain more and more of their energy. And the more that you gain their energy, the less ability that they would have to see in the astral plane and to explore other dimensions of reality. Now, of course, if you use a weapon per se, this automatically will also disconnect you from, it'll reset the connection in the front of the body, and potentially it may and could even disconnect a person altogether. So killing with weapons in size space is something that you don't necessarily want to do unless you don't really care about having the charge of energy in the front of your body, because it resets the energy. So the best way to do it is to imagine punching them in the nose, knocking their nose into their brains, punching them in the throats, biting their jugular veins, especially if they're young teenagers and things. It's easy to imagine in your mind's eye biting someone on where the jugular vein is and ripping out a chunk of their flesh in the multiverse and watching it spew everywhere, and then they die in the multiverse. Ways to gain energy and to get over on a male. Now, this delves off into other mysteries of magic, and one way to do this is to go into your mind's eye and your imagination, imagine licking the phallus member of the male, and then afterwards going to their rectum and imagine in your mind's eye fingering them in the asshole. Then what you do is you, with your mind's eye, go to their female. The intention is all you really need to project to the female. So you imagine like whoever they're connected to in size space, and then you project to that female, and you can imagine fingering her and or doing other sexual things, which automatically will pull the female from the male into you, which then draws energy from the male. Which is an easy way to draw energy and gain energy from another male. Other mysteries, sexual mysteries in size space, actually consist of the projection of your own phallus in a woman's 3 orifices. You can imagine yourself projected in 3 times at once, as if you have 3 etheric doubles in your mind's eye, and you can project an image of your phallus into the mouth and to the other 2 orifices of the female, and so it's yourself projected 3 times with all 3 of your member in the mouth, the ass, and the vagina in size space. And then you can, of course, go into you can pull, let's say, the people would call it a demon, but you could refer to it as a reptoid entity that will then project itself from the body of the female and come to the male. I know that sounds really bizarre and fantastic, but it actually it works. The first thing to do when you do this, though, is to enter in your mind's eye, imagine going into the mouth of the person, into their brain, projecting images of yourself, pictures of yourself, images of yourself. Then go down, of course, to the breast. You can push, imagine the breast getting bigger as you push outward when you're in the body. You can go down to the vagina, you can come out the vagina, go back up in the vagina, you can go out, go in the ass, etc. You can go out, go back into the vagina, go up to the mind. You can project an image of your phallus. And then once you do that, you can put the lust potentially into a person's head. And as soon as a person thinks sexually about another person in size space, if the other person's thinking sexually as well, they will, in the astral plane, have sex. Yeah, if you're both thinking about having sex astrally, you both will be having sex in the astral plane. So then, what you do is you imagine yourself 3 times, and then 1 in the mouth, 1 in the vagina, 1 in the ass. And what this does is it pulls forth an entity out of the person's body. Now, of course, the mysteries of sex magic can get into even harming and killing people in size space, because, of course, corruption, harming, and killing is the truth of reality, which, of course, you don't do it in the physical world. You just do it in your mind's eye and your imagination to draw energy from other people. And the more energy, of course, as I mentioned, that you have, the more power that you have to influence and affect things. Now, of course, people can lose energy, and people often lose energy because of mediocre things, cigarettes, alcoholic beverages, narcotic substances, etc. And at the same time, there's another way to influence and affect a person to gain significant amounts of energy, which is called a mind swap. And if a person is attacking you in psi space, now of course most people are not developed enough to be able to swap their minds continuously and to engage in hyperdimensional warfare. But if you're attacking somebody in your mind's eye and you're imagining killing them, one of the ways that people will defend themselves is by entering into the mouth of a person and going up to their brain and literally pulling, imagine grabbing their brain and pulling it out. And then you can see in psi space the astro brain. What you do then is you go up into your own mouth and pull out your own brain. Then you see your astro brain, and then you swap brains. It's called a mind swap. And when you mind swap, when you go to kill the person, when the person is killing you and you mind swap with them, they end up killing their fucking, you end up gaining the energy that they would gain for killing, you know what I mean, if they don't realize that you mind swapped with them. That's a good way, an easy way to gain energy. You can also mind swap and do fucked up things, mind swap and start acting crazy, mind swap and do asinine things to make a person lose energy, etc. Of course, depending upon the uniqueness of the soul. You also have the ability to, you can mind swap in psi space, and then you can do something positive for a person if you would like, just as well as you can do things that are negative to affect the person and gain energy in that kind of way. Another thing that I did good bit myself is taking out the brain of another person, and instead of mind swapping, you can go to the chip. If there's a chip on the person's brain, you can take the chip and you can put it on another person's brain by removing the other person's brain astrally, their mind or the brain astrally, and then placing the chip upon it. If there's any chips that reside in your own brain, the astro chips, then you can then take those astro chips out and then you can put them on another person's brain and then put the brain back into their head. These are just a couple of the secrets of the astro plane, the invisible landscape. And I think the most important is the ability to lock up in psi space, which then grants you a charge either in the front of the body or the back of the body. Even oral can be done, of course, which then charges the mind. As a male, having a female locked up on your penis in psi space, because it stays, and that's the thing, like, you'll be able to connect into them and remain connected to them as long as you don't violate any of the principles that I said. Don't masturbate, don't drink, don't smoke cigarettes, of course, and don't imagine having sex with anybody else, just to be precautious that you don't swap, etc. And another thing is that you have to be careful. Some people may even use, some people get away with doing certain things in psi space by using condoms, but it still swaps out. But you don't have to worry about any of the negative effects that could come through it. For instance, I locked up with a news presenter that was really sexy, blonde-haired girl, and I guess because she was a public figure, there was a lot of men that in psi space that were already locked up or trying to lock up with her. And what happened was it put a bunch of like tendrils, I would say, or female, like what do you want to call them, female phalluses or like tendrils, is that made me lose a whole lot of energy. And people don't realize that when you lock up with somebody, you're locking up, but then you might take on some of the negative qualities that they've already had experienced themselves. And what I mean by that is, like, you might lock up and have certain things astrally implanted into you through the process. Like, for instance, if I would imagine going into if a male would imagine going into, like, the rectum of a female or a male, or I imagine going into the rectum of a female, etc., and lock up, anybody else that's locked up in the ass would carry over into your physical, like, into your astral, like, body. So then you'll have them inside space connected to you, and then this goes right back into this, like, game of dominance where peoples will attempt to gain control or influence or effect over another person's reality by, imagine, being locked up into their rectums to raise that astro chip up into the brain to basically control and influence and affect and gain all the energy from another person. Another secret, which this sounds a little bizarre, but how you do this is by intensely in your mind's eye imagining your own phallus entering into the phallus of the male. And so you imagine your erect phallus entering where the male phallus is located. It has to be like that. You imagine your thing going in and locked up in where the penis would be. And so if you can imagine your own penis being basically jammed up in the other person's penis and up in their gut, more or less, you're capable of leaving it locked that way, and you're capable of pulling energy from the male. And I noticed a lot of people in Space were doing this. I even had people doing this to me, and I caught it with my mind's eye. What they were doing was locking up to pull the strength out of the front of my body. And so you're capable of pulling strength out of another male in the same way that you can a female. Yeah. And from what I get, there's ways to remove the phalluses of the females. It's as if like a astro female like tendril kind of like enters into the body, and it can go up into like the brain. And these things can be removed by connecting in your mind's eye to another man, which removes like 2 of these actual tendrils in Space from you. And so the mysteries, the secrets of the unseen are completely different from what is basically granted in the public, of course, and anything that touches on the occult, etc., is deemed devil worship, when it's really just a science of the universe and a science of the mind and the more truth about the astral plane of reality. All right, thank you.